Welcome, Dr. Rick here with Relate Well, and we're going to have a conversation in this live around what is it that unhappy, unfulfilled couples do that, let's ignore that call phone right now. Hang on just a minute. One of the things about going live is that you never know what's going to happen around you, huh? I'm here in my office and have a couple of phone lines over there. All right, so let's get back to this. What is it? What is it that unhappy and unfulfilled couples actually do regularly that keeps them unhappy and unfulfilled? Nobody gets married to be miserable. I mean, when you're dating, you do a lot of things to keep the relationship healthy and vibrant and loving and nurturing and tender. You call each other, you give each other grace. You call each other 3, 4, 5 times a day. Just think about it, and you talk, you listen to each other, you're affectionate, you do things together, and yet somehow I don't know what it is. Ultimately, I have ideas, but when couples get married, the majority of couples down the road of marriage, they don't call each other as much anymore, and they're not very intentional about connecting like they were when they were dating. Have you ever noticed that down the road of marriage, you don't treat each other the way that you treat each other when you were dating? When you're dating, you overlooked issues in their life, but now I'm not going to overlook them anymore. I was a little more gracious to you back in those days, but I'm not as gracious to you now and don't want to be gracious to you. And so somehow when we're married or when we're dating and before we get married, we overlook a lot. We pursue, we connect, we want to be near you and around you. And then once I marry you and reality sets in, I realize, wow, Rick Marks had a 48-foot U-Haul truck filled with emotional baggage. And I did. Luella had hers as well. Somehow we lose that love and feeling and we quit treating each other the way we did when we were dating and pursuing. It's almost like, okay, the pursuit's over. Now we're together. Now we have to settle in for the long haul. And because they're not the person you thought they were, you had expectations about things, and those expectations aren't being met. And now you're angry and hurt and fearful. And you carry this pain. Expectations, needs not being met, expectations not being met. Now you're angry. Now you're questioning, should I have married you in the first place? But you got kids, you got this, you got that, so you stay in it and you stay miserable. I grew up in that, and so did my wife. And we decided we weren't going to replicate that in our personal lives uh, in our marriage. We wanted to do it differently, we wanted to do it better. And so we did. Relate Well, our program, is really our journey. It's what we learned and what we did to create a healthy, loving, strong sense of us. All right. And so, because we started out loving each other, but not really healthy and mature, so we made a lot of, you know, we didn't know how to love well. We didn't know how to really love each other maturely. So we had to learn it later in our life, in late 20s, early 30s. Much of what we learned, and because we were teachable, I can say at 37 years of marriage, we have a pretty strong us. We have a good relationship. She is my best friend. I love being around her. And yesterday I was driving up the coastal road A1A, and there was this uh, couple, probably in their 50s, walk on the side of the road to their car near the Matanzas outlet, Matanzas Inlet there in south of St. Augustine. And they had these teachers on. His teacher, his teacher said, "Her rock." her rock. Her teacher said, his peace, his peace. And I saw those two t-shirts and I thought, I can't say if I'm her rock or not. That would be up to her. But you want to know something? Luella is my peace. She is my peace. When I'm with her, it's like everything's just right. When I'm with her, the world could have all kinds of struggles, but she is my peace. She's an anchor for me. She's a part of me that says everything's going to be okay. We'll make it. Her rock is peace. But what do unhealthy couples do to keep them unhappy, unfulfilled? We're going to talk about 6 things that I can think of. You ready? Let's go. 6 things unhealthy couples do to stay unhappy, unfulfilled, and not create the loving, caring, mature sense of usness, that's our word for it, a sense of us that they really are looking for. Number one, unhappy couples take each other for granted. They take each other for granted. In other words, I expect Luella to make dinner. I expect her to wash my clothes. I expect her to do all these things for me. And I'm not appreciative of those things. I'm not grateful for those things because I expect those things to happen. If they don't happen, then I'm angry and I'm upset. Why? Because she's not doing what I expect to happen. I've taken her for granted. Or maybe she expects me to work and bring in an income. She expects me to do certain things, and if I don't, then she's all upset. Why? She took me for granted. When you take someone for granted, you no longer see them as someone who's there for you because they want to be. You see them as someone who's there for you because they're supposed to be there for you, doing what you expect them to do. And when we start taking people for granted, we no longer see them as an individual. We see them as someone who's there to serve us, take care of us. It's almost like they're there for our benefit. And when whatever they do out here doesn't benefit us, we're upset about it. Well, we took them for granted. And you take not just them for granted, you take the things that they do for granted. You take the things that they do in your life for granted. Example, true story. This is my 19th year of marriage. I've been married 37 years, all right? At this talk we're having right now. 19th year of marriage. I got out of the shower. I know, scary thought, huh? Think about it. Never mind. Got out of the shower, went to my bottom drawer, opened up bottom drawer, where for 19 years all my t-shirts and underwear in that drawer. Whenever I open that drawer, hear me, whenever I open that drawer, I never think about them. I never consider them. They're not in my mind. They're not something I even ponder. Whenever I open that drawer for 19 years at that point in time, every time I open that drawer, t-shirts and underwears are always in that drawer. They're never not there. They're always there. But on this particular day, I got out of the shower, I went to my bottom drawer, pulled it open, and I know this is going to sound weird, but I had like this epiphany. I felt it in my body. I felt it, and I said out loud, Luella was in the closet. I said out loud, they're always in there. Because I had a realization, no matter when I open that drawer, every day, 3 times a day, for 19 years, when I would open up that drawer, they're always in there. And I actually said out loud, I said, they're always in there. And I heard her go, what? I go, 19 years of marriage, when I open up this bottom drawer, the t-shirts and underwear are always in there. And she's looking at me like I'm kind of nutty because she came out, kind of looked around the door of the closet door at me. And she said, what? I go, no. Hear me out. I said, I just realized something. Whenever I open up this bottom drawer, t-shirts and underwears are always there. I don't think about it, honey. I don't consider it. I said, I actually take it for granted. I said, because I just realized something. If you were not here, if you were not here, they wouldn't be there unless I put them there. And I said to her, listen to how I said it, because I meant it, and I still mean it to this day. I said, the fact that I can open this drawer and them just be there without me considering or thinking about it is the evidence of your presence in my life. It's the evidence of of her presence in my life. She is still present with me. And I took that for granted because if she was to die or loss come somehow, they wouldn't be there. I took it for granted. You know what? To this day, I'm appreciative. If she washes clothes, she don't want me watching them, by the way, in case you're wondering. And she puts them there. She does so much around me that I don't think about or consider. She did so much for the kids that I never considered or thought about. But if she had died or left or whatever, death and loss is a part of life. All that was going to change. I began to realize I took her for granted. Unhappy couples take each other for granted. And I've come to realize something. I need to live life fully in the present every day. So if loss or death came today, I've appreciated. Because on the day that death or loss comes, a lot of things change. I've learned to not take my wife for granted, but to be appreciative and grateful that she's still with me and that she does things around me all the time I don't even consider. But if loss came or death came, I would be considering them because they're going to show up in on my lap. I do things that she doesn't consider, but I do them because I want to. It's part of my job and my role, and because I love her. And if I was gone, those things would change for her. Unhappy couples take each other for granted. Learn to appreciate. Learn to live in the present. That person could be gone. Death and loss is a part of life. Learn to appreciate. Don't take each other for granted. Appreciate, be grateful. Number two, unhappy couples are very inflexible. They're very inflexible. In other words, when things need to change, they don't change. All right? In life, flexibility is a given. Not everything in life is about status quo. Things change. If you're still spanking a 16-year-old, you haven't changed. All right. My wife is not the same woman she was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I'm not the same guy. I've actually gained some weight and got white hair. All right. But I'm also a lot more mature. I'm a lot more secure than I used to be. I'm less manipulative, a lot less manipulative, right? I'll probably argue I'm not manipulative anymore. But I'm not the same guy. But when you're inflexible, then you're always trying to deal with life from a very certain mindset. In the religious world, it's called legalism. In the psychology world, it's an authoritarian structure that you have a way of being and you can't change or move or shift. You know, the problem about inflexibility is inflexible structures aren't teachable. Inflexible structures can't change. So they continue doing what they've always done in the way they've always done it when reality necessitates you must change, that you have to do something different, that you can't continue to do things this way. You understand that stress is not a negative. Stress is just a signal that something has to change. But some people don't like change. A lot of reasons why. This comfortable, it's the way we've always done it. You've heard that before. With the way we've always done it, that may be, but it necessitates change today. All right. You don't know what to do different. Well, if you don't, go ask, get support. But unhappy couples, unfulfilled couples, they're very inflexible. There's a set way of doing things, and it's going to be done this way. Same time, I'm inflexible with what I let you do or don't do. I'm inflexible with whether I give you grace or not. I'm inflexible with whether I give you forgiveness or not. I'm inflexible with whether I reached out to you in love when I don't get my way. Because inflexibility will keep you from being compassionate. Inflexibility will keep you from being understanding. Inflexibility will keep you from being empathic. Inflexibility will keep you from being respectful. Inflexibility will keep you from having goodwill. Because inflexibility ultimately is going to be about pride. About pride. My way or the highway. This is the way we've always done it. This worked. It may have worked then, but guess what? It got to change. You see, as time goes on, culture changes, things change, kids get older, we all change. And healthy couples understand that healthy relationships have some structure, but they have the ability to change as well. They've got to be flexible. You see, you got to have balance between the two. But inflexibility was called rigidness in the marriage therapy world. It was called a rigid structure. And rigid relationships are actually unbalanced relationships, you see. You're still disciplining the same way. You can't change because communication can't come into the system to change it because nobody's teachable. Here's the downside. Where there's very inflexible relationships, people, you don't talk about what's going on in the relationship either, because there's usually a power structure that will prevent you from talking and sharing. You see, unhappy couples are inflexible. Things change, folks. Things change. Life is about change. All right? Expect change. Change is not a bad thing. Now, you see, my wife and I are different in this way. She's a lot more inflexible around things than I am. Example, our first year of marriage, right? I like a lot of change, right? So I think it was our first year of marriage. She came home. I had rearranged the furniture in the living room. I just wanted something different. Boy, I learned never do that again. That's an us decision. She couldn't handle it because she likes things in this little tight box, right? Luella has become a lot more flexible. Got it? I've got to become a little more structured. Are you with me? Because the other extreme in flexibility is chaotic. There's no structure, no rules, and those families are just as much unhappy, and they are just as much as dysfunction, unbalance. All right. Now, a third trait for unhappy couples is they don't prioritize their sense of usness. They don't prioritize us. If you follow my work on any level, you know that the way I live my life is in marriage is it's not about me, it's about us. When us wins, you both win. Us loses, you both lose. It takes two to make an us and only one to kill it. Got it? And so everything you do gives to us or it gives to you. And unhappy couples don't focus on this idea of us, they focus on themselves. And because they're both living for themselves, they're actually destroying the sense of usness because it takes two to make an us and one to kill it, you see. But because in their mind, I have to get my needs met my way, I have expectations of what you're supposed to be. I'm not living for us, I'm living for me. And because I'm living for me and you're not doing what I want, right? Then I'm unhappy. I'm unsatisfied. Okay. Life isn't positive anymore. All right. And that's very unhappy. Okay. It's very unhealthy that way. All right. So they don't prioritize us. All right. Number four, quality time is not intentional. They're not intentional about quality time. Quality time doesn't just happen. Now, when you were dating, you made quality time. You guys went out a lot. You sat together and talked. You listened to each other's hurts and pains. You were nurturing and tender. All right, I'm gonna put a block here. My wife's about to come in and walk past me. All right, she's home. Um, that's all right. It's good to see you. So she walks by That's this wonderful lady I always talk about to walk by me here. There she goes, everybody. That was Luella, my bride, 37 years. Okay. Unhappy couples don't prioritize their sense of usness. They don't prioritize us. Everything that I do in my life, in how I counsel, is based on what's best for us, not what's best for you. To live for us, it requires humility. You understand that in humility, you're actually teachable. Mature people actually live a life of humility. Immature people live in pride. It's real simple. It's not rocket science. And when you're unhappy, it's because you're living for yourself. It's you're not getting things your way or done the way that you want, or this person's not meeting the expectation needs that you want your way. When you give to us, it's out of humility. Why? Because you'd rather have us than you. Isn't it sad that American culture today is so broken and emotional? The leading epidemic health crisis in America is actually loneliness. And I said health crisis, not mental health, because loneliness actually leads to, as medical journals prove, heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, all kinds of abdominal problems, ulcers, irritable bowel syndrome. It leads to depression. Depression doesn't create loneliness. Loneliness actually creates depression. Depression also, loneliness also creates anxiety disorders, and loneliness feeds addictions. Loneliness is so bad, insurance companies want it fixed. They want it solved. Just read the data on what loneliness is doing to this country. Americans are more lonely and disconnected than they've always been. We've traded floor space for connection. We've traded things for relationships. We are so broken and disconnected. But unhealthy couples aren't intentional about connecting the us or prioritizing us and connecting in us. Quality time is intentional. Quality time means I'm thinking about this and wanting to do this and following through with this. It's because that's what I want. And I know people argue quality versus quantity, but let me tell you something. You ask any kid if they'll remember 3 minutes of quality time a month. They won't. But they'll remember a lot of quality time. They're not going to remember 3 minutes of quality time a week. They're going to remember a lot of quality time. So it's intentional. What do you guys do? What do you do to establish that connection, that quality time that rebuilds the us, that enriches the us, that enriches your own soul? Could be sitting watching TV together. It could be going out and having dinner together as a date. Now, how do you know a dating couple from a married couple in a restaurant? It's actually simple. Dating couples are talking to each other. Married couples are just eating. Go out on a date. Got it? Go out on a date. Dating couples are at a restaurant as a part of the date. Married couples just didn't cook at home. They went and ate somewhere else. Make it a date. Be intentional about each other. And you don't have to spend money to do this. It could also be just hanging out at the house, sitting on the back porch talking. You see, listening to each other, listening to their hurts and pains. Be intentional about connecting to each other. Be intentional about building the us. Quality time for unhappy couple is not intentional. And because it's not intentional, it doesn't happen a lot. Don't let time dictate your life. You dictate what you do in time. That's on us. That's on you. Number five thing that unhappy couples do is there's really poor or little no communication. There's poor to little or no communication. And because they don't communicate well, and there's very little communication that actually takes place, they don't seek understanding. Because understanding comes through good, healthy communication, right? To communicate, it's not about me just talking to you. It's about the speaker sending a message to the listener, and the listener is getting the message the speaker intended. It's a feedback loop, you see? Because What's most important in communication is understanding, not being understood. There's an old principle that says slow to anger, quick to hear, slow to speak. Slow to anger, quick to hear, slow to speak. You understand that the focus of uh, uh, that old scripture is really about listening, not talking. You see, listening means I value you. Listening means you matter. Listening means that what you think and feel matters to me. And because my energy is in listening and understanding how things are for you, it's hard to get angry. It's hard to get angry. But when you're not listening to me, it's easy to get angry. It's easy to get angry. You see, we need to be able to hear each other's truths. We need to be able to hear each other's feelings, hurts, joys, hurts, pains, fears. We don't take things personal. And personally, guess what? You don't have to agree or disagree, but you've got to communicate in a way that creates understanding. And understanding, you create a sense of intimate relationship. And the last thing that unhappy couples do is they have really unhealthy boundaries. They have very unhealthy boundaries. Uh, in other words, you're not allowed to have your own thoughts. You're not allowed to have your own opinions. You're not allowed to own your own feelings. Why are you feeling that way? You shouldn't feel that way. What do you think that way for? Unhealthy boundaries. I'm violating your boundaries. You have the right to think the way that you want to think. You have the right to feel what you want to feel. I don't have to agree or disagree, but when you disrespect another person's boundaries, now what kind of boundaries are these? Personal boundaries. Listen, we all have physical boundaries. It's a space around us. If someone says you need to back up, back up. Respect their physical space. Sadly, in unhappy couples, they don't respect physical space. Usually one of them doesn't, particularly in abusive relationships. You see, you have this space around you. I respect my wife's physical boundaries. Man, we're going through a lot of changes, and she gets hot and cold a lot at night. Stay over there, stay over there. I do. Why? I respect that boundary. Because she's going through changes, right? Physically. Hot and cold, flashes, all that kind of stuff. We also need to respect people's emotional boundaries. People have the right to feel whatever they want to feel. People have a right to their feelings. They also have the right to their thoughts. Now, I grew up in a home where if I had a thought or a feeling and shared it, I was always told by my stepmother that I was dumb or stupid, or I was put down for having thoughts or feelings. I grew up thinking I wasn't allowed to have my thoughts and feelings. What I learned was my thoughts and feelings didn't matter. They do matter. I can honor how you think and feel. Doesn't mean I have to agree with you, but I always respect another person's thoughts and feelings. You see, when you have unhealthy boundaries, you're actually disrespecting your boundaries, and you disrespect the people's boundaries. You have boundaries at work, folks. Unhealthy boundaries. Work is at work. Home's at home. Unhealthy boundaries with in-laws. Keep your in-laws out of your marriage stuff. Keep your in-laws out of your marriage stuff. Also, when you get married, you put the in-laws next to the marriage. It's healthy, it's mature. But unhappy couples have unhealthy boundaries. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's a boundary. Say what you mean, be who you need to be. But do it with goodwill, respect, humility, empathy, with what we teach in our relatable process, that everything we do is centered around living a life of goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. And if you live a life of goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy, you'll actually undo these things we talked about today. You respect people's boundaries. Why? Because it's disrespectful to not respect someone's boundaries. You'll communicate well. Well, because poor communication requires respecting others. It requires goodwill. It requires empathy. And all that, those three things require humility to communicate well. This is why in our Relate Well program, we actually teach people the skills and tools for a healthy relationship so that these 6 things that unhappy couples do won't show up in your marriage. They just won't show up. When you live life according to the 4 protectors of an us, and we teach the skills and relate well. It's what I learned a long time ago, and it's why relate well is a part of my own personal journey of growing and maturing. I've got a strong, healthy marriage to this day to a wonderful lady, and I'm grateful for her. We have an us. We prioritize it. We make time for us. We're quality time's intentional. We don't take each other for granted. Every time I open that drawer, the bottom, and those t-shirts and underwear in there, that just means my bride is still around. Because I recognize there's a day coming she could be gone before me, and I ain't looking forward to that day. Not at all. I'm going to be grateful and appreciative of all that she does. And I've learned to be flexible. Change is a part of life, and that's okay. She ain't the same woman. Body's changing, mind's changed. All right? Hormones change, all kinds of things change. Stay flexible. Stay flexible. These are things that unhappy couples do. And I've given you some thoughts of what you can undo if you're doing those 6 things or any one of them. And it's our hope with Relate Well that you have a strong, healthy, vibrant, mature, loving, happy marriage. Thanks for listening.